is where there are reports of a school shooting. What we're hearing at this hour from the Comal County Sheriff's Department, you see the visual right there, you see the live shot right there. They're investigating reports of a shooting at a high school in the Bulverde area. What we're hearing from the Sheriff's Department is that they were dispatched to Mustang Vista. That is a town. The school is called Hill Country College Prep. They were sent there after reports of gunfire. What the officials there are telling us is that one person has been shot and taken to the hospital. We do not know the identity of that person, whether it's a student or a teacher, and we don't know the condition. We do know that there were law enforcement officers on campus, and now there are even more law enforcement officers on campus, and they're telling us that that building is now, quote, secure. The students and the staff are still inside that building, and what we're being told, again, is that the threat has, quote, been contained. Some of the students at that school have been transported to a middle school so they can kind of reunite with their parents. And remember that Texas, I believe, is an hour behind us, so it's about 11 o'clock. Unlike schools in our area, no spring break this week. They've already had spring break because schools in that area close way earlier. I think some of them even before Memorial Day. So they're on a bit of a different schedule in terms of what our kids in the Philadelphia area are doing and what they're doing. We do know that the middle school has been placed on hold. So there's no classes going on right there during this transition and the parent, what they're calling reunification. So again, the middle school is also in Belverde. And students are being told that their parents are going to be coming. We know that if mom, dad, or another caregiver is planning on going over there, they're going to need their their ID. The student has to be listed there. So the officials in Texas are kind of giving members of the news media some rules about what they should expect when they go there. So again, 2 live images. One, as you see the school right there. If you're just joining us, this is Philadelphia Live. I'm Jen Frederick, but we do have a report of a shooting. That is one of our broadcast partners right there. She's doing a report as well, their version of Skyfox up in the air. If you don't have a student there, parents are being asked to stay away. That's pretty common. But again, we're told that at least one person who was shot has been taken to the hospital. We're also being told that the school is called the Hill County College Prep High School. So it is a private school. The kids are actually being taken to the public school in that county. In Texas, they have something that they call ISDs. It's an independent school district. So all of these schools, both private and public, are part of an ISD in the Texas area. And all of them actually are funded by taxpayer dollars in Texas. It's one of the things that they do. They call it the Robin Hood system, meaning the wealthy school districts give to the less fortunate school districts so that every kid in the state of Texas gets a minimum amount of money towards their education. So instead of seeing like super wealthy school districts and then, things that, are having trouble, like we see in Pennsylvania, in Texas, it's interesting because even the private schools and the public schools are all part of one school district, and they do call that the ISD, an independent school district. At the beginning of my career, I worked in Texas for quite some time. So at the same time, back here in Philadelphia, the district attorney, Larry Krasner, is speaking. We're going to listen into him live.
Thank you. And last but never least, hopefully on point, Mr. Cipriano.
Well, thanks for that stirring introduction. At a press conference last week held at the airport where you threatened ICE agents with arrest, you stated, and I quote, "No, I don't take a phone call from the president saying let them go. No, the president cannot pardon you," unquote. But although you won't take calls from the president, you did grant a personal audience to a municipal court judge who was lobbying you about personnel moves involving a black supervisor in your homicide unit. Can you explain the
I'm intrigued by your interest. Weren't you opposed to diversity training when you were at the Inquirer, sir? Am I missing something? Is this a newfound interest on your part?
Is it about me, sir?
It isn't?
Try to answer your question.
Well, I'm just curious because, you left that journalistic organization shortly thereafter. I speak to municipal court judges all the time. I do so on many topics. I talk to judges of the Court of Common Pleas all the time. And that is what I have to say in reference to your question. I should. It's part of my job. Do you have another question, sir?
I sure do, sir. By the way, what's going on with the supervisor? I heard you told both ADAs, Mr. Wainwright and Christian Quinn, that you were transferring them out of homicide, and now I hear you've done some backtracking after being lobbied by the judge and several other black leaders. And that the upshot is ADA Wainwright is going to the U.S. Attorney's Office, but ADA Wynn is staying on as assistant supervisor in homicide. Can you explain what's going on?
I can explain that I think you need some better sources for these, frankly,
Oh, I got pretty
scurrilous rumors that you love to perpetrate. I also think it's really inappropriate to talk about personnel matters publicly. It's not something that we have done, and it has nothing to do with this press conference. So, Mr. Cipriano, as always, good to see you, and I wish you an excellent day.
Heartfelt, sir.
So again, that was a press conference with DA Larry Krasner. He was there to announce his department's fiscal year budget, but certainly he did not like the questions from Mr. Cipriano, who's a reporter for the Philadelphia Inquirer. Interestingly enough, they got rid of that. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the reporting of that story. All right, so we're going to go back to Texas just briefly because there is a report of a school shooting. So we have a live camera there. As you can see, there are people there, not a ton of law enforcement or first responders there, which, believe it or not, is sort of good news. It means that the situation is under control. And that is what the sheriff's department in that area is reporting. This is in the general Austin, Texas area. And we do know that the school where it happened, as well as some other schools in that independent school district, have been put on lockdown. So we have here Comal County. They're investigating this shooting. It happened at a high school. We know that at least one person was taken to the hospital. Now you see more law enforcement actually showing up, again through that live camera. But we don't know if it is a teacher, if it's a student, if it's someone that came in to kind of stop all of this. We really have no idea who was shot or what the circumstances of that may be. This is what we do know. The sheriff's department is saying that the situation's under control and it's not an active shooter situation. Again, this is in the Austin, Texas area, and we're being told that the kids that are at this prep school are being taken to a nearby middle school, and that is where they will kind of be reunited with their mom, with their dad, whoever it is that's going to pick them up. And remember, it is about 10 after 11 in the Austin, Texas area. So certainly school was underway. It can only be described as scary and just anxiety-ridden when there is a shooting of any kind in any school district anywhere. The other thing that we're talking about today, gas prices, your money, and obviously the conflict in the Middle East and what is happening in the airports in and around Philadelphia, but the United States. So the one thing that we do have to begin with are gas prices, airports. There we go. Let's stay there. I think many people are hopeful that the airports will stay like this. Is this Houston? This is Houston. As you know, for about 10 days, we have had 4-hour-plus delays, specifically at Houston's airport, also in Atlanta. The president over the weekend said that he would start paying the TSA workers today, and now we see this. That's Atlanta. So right there you have Atlanta. The other thing that was very interesting is people over the weekend were talking about the fact you cannot check a bag before 4 hours before a flight. So the people that were flying through Houston, flying through Atlanta, they were on social media saying, hey, Atlanta Airport, United, Delta, American, you need to change the rule so that we can book or check our luggage before we get on these flights. But anyway, now you are seeing Atlanta. Of course, we're always curious about what is happening in and around the Philadelphia area, but this is a live camera. I can tell you from personal experience, the Atlanta airport, even under normal circumstances, is one of the most frustrating airports to fly in or out of. People in the room are nodding their head because it's true. It's one of those airports. It's very, very busy. They have a lot of airlines. A lot of people that don't fly there all the time use it as a connection. So it's well known to be one of those airports that if you're flying in or out of there, you want to try, if you can, to make sure you have extra time to get through that airport. So it will be interesting to see if the airports across the country and Houston, because again, this is Atlanta, are looking better. And does it help day to day to day? And of course, Easter is at the end of this week, so that will be one of the busiest days. All right, so let's go to your gas prices, because as you know, this is one of the things that we've been looking at. This is something that directly affects most of us. Many of us either have access to a car or use it in some way. And there you see it, Philadelphia above $4 a gallon. When we had spoken with Jana Tidwell from AAA, and this is a AAA map we should mention, she had said people really don't change their behavior until it goes from $1 amount to the other. It may be $3.95, but until it really goes over that $4 mark, she doesn't see people changing their behavior in any way. Now, the interesting thing, and you see the headline there, the national gas average has jumped a full dollar in just 1 month. And I think when you think about the fact that this happened in March, we typically see it more in the summer months when people are driving down the shore or that type of thing. All of the states around our area are not doing incredibly well. They're certainly not like what's happening out in California, which, yeah, look at that. $5.87 for a gallon of gas. California is historically one of the highest in the country. New Jersey and Delaware are usually looking pretty good. Here we see New Jersey. And you know what? Congrats to New Jersey, because nowhere on the map do they hit 4. Even in their most expensive area, which is that dark red, they're at 393, 398. So they are not really reaching us. And then, of course, when you see some of those dark, yep, right there, Salem County, that's 378. And as we always like to mention when we're talking about this, when you are in New Jersey, they pump the gas for you. How about Delaware? There you see it. 385 in Newcastle County. That's the area where most people are affected because it's closer to us. Down there in Sussex, maybe you are traveling because it is the beginning of Easter week. It's the beginning of spring break for so many families that we will see people traveling, especially if, you thought the airlines were too expensive, you thought the lines were too long, you were worried about what's going to be happening. You might be in a car. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break. We're going to be right back. We have a lot happening. A White House press briefing is expected. We're talking to TMZ about Tiger Woods, about the Congress people that are on vacation. We've got a lot going on. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick. This is Philadelphia Live. You are looking at a school, a prep school, that is in a suburb known as Bulverde, right outside Austin, Texas. And here's what you need to know. One person was shot. One person was taken to the hospital. What we don't know is who that person is and what condition they might be in. So again, we don't know if the person is a student. We don't know if the person it was a teacher or a school employee. We're not really sure who the person was. We also know this: the students that are at this prep school, so like a high school, they are being transported to the local middle school, and that's where their caregivers, their parents, their moms, their dads, that's where they're going to be reunited with those people, because they're trying to figure out how to get everyone home to where they need to be in a very safe way. If you're wondering, in Texas, it's not really a spring break holiday season. Their school schedule is a little bit different. They've already had spring break. They get out of school closer to Memorial Day. So their school year is a little bit different than ours. So this was, by all accounts, a very normal day. The interesting thing, the sheriff's department in that Texas county has said it's not an active shooter. So we don't know if it was someone that walked into that school, that knew something about the school, that knew someone, that there was some kind of a situation there. Those are some of the questions that we're still trying to figure out at this hour. We have been told that it is under control there, that it is stable. But of course, whenever you have kids that are in a school and there is a shooting, I mean, this is a high school. There are children there. There are students. And what's great is we do have two perspectives there. We do have Sky Fox, which is overhead, as well as that kind of stable camera that's at what we believe to be one of the entrances of that high school. All of this coming to us from our Austin TV broadcast partners. So we're happy to have that. The other thing that's happening in and around Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware, it is spring break time. So there's kids doing all kinds of things here. Chris O'Connell is on that story this afternoon. Good afternoon, bud.
Good afternoon, Jen. Sorry, it's a little windy out here, but what a cool event we were just at today, just here in South Philadelphia, in the playground of Child's Middle School. It is spring break in Philly, but about a dozen or so, couple dozen kids actually came to school today to do something really fun. They're actually inside right now. They spent the morning flying drones, not like, small ones, but really cool ones that the police department uses. It's part of a STEM event with the School District of Philadelphia, as well as the Philadelphia Police Department, getting kids on their spring break to learn about STEM and learn about, best thing, having fun with drones. Joining me now, Sergeant Jesse. I'm going to hold this up, Sergeant. Thanks for joining. I'll hold it. What was it like for these kids today? It must be so cool to see their eyes lighten up when they fly one of these drones.
Right. So when we talk about the community engagement, this is the beauty of it all, is to be able to have those kids being able to fly those drones and get excited about technology, get excited about coding and programming, because talk about drones, right? Building a drone, being able to fly drones, and more so and more importantly is the public safety and flying drones in a safe manner.
And if you don't know, the City of Philadelphia Police Department has about a dozen docking stations, and they're getting to the point now where just a couple clicks of a button and a pilot somewhere remotely, you guys can respond to incidents within seconds. Is that right?
Yes, typically within a minute to 2 minutes. Most of the time, our drones are tied to a 911 call. It's not surveillance. They're always tied to a 911 call. And it moves operators at a call location and fly the drones to the 911 calls to assist in clearing 911 calls, but more importantly, the officer safety and public safety.
And getting back to the kids, they're learning technology and learning there could be a career in something like this. You said it doesn't have to be law enforcement.
That is correct. So when we talk about flying drones, at some point, the program as it expands, it will differ. We will have hybrid, not only officers, but civilians being able to fly drones to provide that safety.
Sergeant, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Can't wait to share your story tonight on Fox 29 at 5 o'clock. Go have some fun with those kids. These middle schoolers, once again, some of them, this is the first time they've ever seen flying a drone. They saw the police kind where they're flying up and they're watching the video feed from on the ground. So pretty cool stuff. We talked to the Philadelphia Police Department. We talked to a couple teachers. We talked to a student or two. So a lot of fun. So hope you can see it tonight at 5 o'clock.
And you know what's cool? It's like it's science and they're learning, but it's not boring, right? And as you know, you covered the whole drone thing going on, I think in Camden, how they have these police departments that are really drone focused. You know better than anyone, Chris, that if they continue with this, they could get a really good job someday.
Yeah, and it's not, like he said, it's not just the police department. It doesn't have to be law enforcement. There was a company here today that designs the drones, that program the drones. They go out and install the docking stations, and they work hand in hand with the police department. One of the guys here was a physics teacher for 35 years before joining this tech company. So it's not just about law enforcement, but this is the way to get them involved. I did talk to one kid today. He said, this does get him interested, and he said he wants to be a police officer someday.
It's cool. Yeah, I mean, like real estate companies, they're using drones to take pictures of their properties and all of that. Thank you, Chris. Happy spring break. I'm assuming we're going to see you on Easter egg hunts and shopping for chocolate later in the week.
Possibly, but I'm headed to Florida later in the week, so I got a little spring break plan of my own.
All right, have fun, babe. All right, so you know what? The stocks are giving us a bit of a spring break. We know it's been terrible. Last week, a lot of people did not like the way that the stock market was looking. And today, look at that. It's green. S&P up 0.2% in midday trading. Of course, comes off its worst week since the war with Iraq began. The Dow is up. What? Iran, yes. I'm looking at it right here. I'm looking at the NASDAQ. I confused them. Thank you very much. All of this following gains for stock markets in much of Europe. You know how this works. The Asian markets open first, and then the European markets open just by, this is how it is. That's when the people are waking up. I have to tell you that some of the Asian markets fell sharply because of the barrel of crude oil delivered in June rose 2.1%. That number is now $107. Remember, at the beginning of all of this, with the conflict in the Middle East, they had said the market cannot handle anything over $100 a barrel. It went from $60 a barrel to 70 to 80 to 90 all in 1 week. At one point, it was up at 119, and now we're seeing 107. So there's really no surprise there that over there in the Asian markets, they didn't like that at all. Wall Street was poised to open the week with gains because the oil prices were climbing. The other thing that people were saying was there was maybe some talks between the president of the United States and the people of Iran. Certainly that's what the president is saying. People in Iran are saying something else, but the stock market did like that for a long time meaning 2 or 3 full days there last week. But overall, Wall Street is closing last Friday with its 5th straight losing streak. And if you're wondering, that's the longest streak that we have had in nearly 4 years. So, futures are looking up. They're saying maybe now that the price of oil is looking good long term, maybe coming down to about $70 a barrel. But all of these things are going to be different things that we are watching. And interestingly, we're watching all of this as we know that the government continues to be on a partial government shutdown. Certainly, the president has said that he will pay the people that work in and around these airports, but this technically is the longest government shutdown in history, 45 days, and we know that Congress is not going to be in session for 2 more weeks. So 2 more weeks on top of 45 days is technically 55 days. Already it's the longest government shutdown in history. So remember, that's when people are working for the government, but they're not getting paid. So I always think shutdown is a bit of a misnomer in terms of what we call it. The president is focused not only on getting TSA workers back to work, getting them paid, he's also focused on what is happening in Iran. And he basically wants the Strait of Hormuz back open. He basically is saying that he has some strategic issues, some strategic maneuvers that he will use to make sure that it is reopened sooner rather than later. He is threatening basically to strike different parts of their energy grid, which really isn't something that happens typically, but he is basically saying he's not willing to let up on what's going to be happening. All right, so real quick, let's go back to Texas. We're going to just take a look because we still do have these live cameras. If you're just joining us, it's almost 11:30 there. There has been a school shooting, and it is in a neighborhood, in a suburb that is near Austin, Texas. This is a prep school. It's a high school, and we're told that at least one person has been shot. That person has been taken to the hospital, but again, no word on if that person is a student or a police officer or a school employee of some kind. And we don't know what condition that person may or may not be in. We do know that the students that were at that school, which is a high school, either have been or were being right now transported to the local middle school. That's where their caregivers will come and pick them up. Caregivers were told, look, you're going to need ID. You got to give us the full name of the person that is registered at the school, in part because the school where this is happening is a private school, and then it's a middle school where the kids are going to be picked up. So again, all of this happening live. We're going to be with you guys until 2 o'clock. We've got a White House press briefing. We've got Michael Babcock from TMZ. We have a lot happening. Stick around. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick. That is a live picture of the Atlanta airport, 45 days in this partial government shutdown, making it the longest shutdown in history. And a lot of people thought it would be over on Friday because basically the Senate voted unanimously to pay everyone in the Department of Homeland Security, absent the ICE officers and the people who take care of deportation. And then what happened in the House? Nothing. And then everyone left for 2 weeks. So TMZ, one of our broadcast partners, the boss over there said, you know what? if they're going to go on break without solving this, he wanted to see something. Michael Babcock is here. Basically, your boss, Harvey, said, you know what? If you see a senator or a U.S. representative enjoying themselves on vacation, take a picture and send it in, right?
Hey, Jen. Yeah, that's exactly right. Made the request to the TMZ Live audience, and then we blasted it out on social media. And boy, have a lot of people seen Congress people who are out and about, as obviously you've got thousands and thousands of workers, TSA, Coast Guard, FEMA. I mean, you've got a bunch of people, Jen, who have not been paid, haven't been getting paid, and in many cases have still showed up to work, in an effort to keep the public moving and able to travel through the air, and that's been incredibly important. But you feel so bad for many of these people who are, these are not incredibly high-paying jobs in many cases, and they're not getting paychecks that in many cases were not even enough to sustain their lives to begin with. So the fact that you've now got, you've got someone like Lindsey Graham, for instance, who was at Disney over the weekend, and you've got a lot of people who are very upset about this. And I think it goes, far beyond party lines here. And if you're a Republican, I think it's just about the, Congress in general, and a lot of people really upset about this.
Like you said, we can't show you the pictures because of how we get you into our building here. But like Bernie Sanders, a Democrat, there's a picture of him in a first-class seat, right? So I think
that's right. Same thing with Ted Cruz.
Yeah. And you would think, especially Ted Cruz, I know that when there was an ice storm there years ago, he was blasted for being in, I think it was Mexico with his family on spring break.
Yeah, he went to Cancun. Remember that? Yeah.
I do. And so you would think these men and women would know that this is coming their way, would know that there is a public outcry, not just from the workers, but for the people who want to use the airports. We're finally flying again after a COVID nightmare.
No, I think that's such a good point, Jen. And look, I see the other side of it too, and I understand you've got a lot of people who say, okay, well, look, on a Sunday, there's nothing that Senator Lindsey Graham can do. The House has not convened, the Senate has not convened, and what is he going to do? He was in Florida, he says, for a high-level meeting with Steve Witkoff, one of Trump's people, where they were talking about Saudi and Israeli relations. So important stuff here. But I get it. And people say, look, what was he supposed to do in that point? There was no way for him to open the government. But again, at the same time, you've got, image after image after image of senators bypassing these long TSA lines where they've got this personal escort that takes them right through security. And they don't even have to feel the pain from that standpoint in having to wait in line with the rest of society as you work your way through an airport. So, and we've seen a lot, I mean, from Senator Marsha Blackburn to John Thune, I mean, they have all skipped these lines. And I think that's frustrating too. Wait in the line. I get you could breeze through. Wait in the line with everybody else.
Yeah. All right. On Friday afternoon, a lot of us were looking at our phones, and we saw around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, Tiger Woods involved in a car accident. So first of all, he was just getting back into golf after being injured so many times. But then to hear he's also being charged with DUI, which is driving under the influence.
Yeah. He
apparently, I think you guys said, blew like a no alcohol, but he's under the influence of something.
Right. Yeah, that's exactly right. You're spot on. 2 o'clock, Jupiter, Florida. Not far from where Tiger Woods about a decade ago got a DUI, but he was driving a brand new Range Rover, and there was a pickup truck who was hauling this really big, like, commercial pressure washer on a trailer, and the guy was trying to make a turn off the road, and he said he just sees Tiger in his rearview mirror. He sees Tiger Woods just flying, and there was no room for Tiger's car to get by, and he ends up clipping the back of the trailer, and it actually rolls Tiger's Range Rover over. It ends up sitting on the driver's side windows. Tiger has to climb out of the car, and police respond to the scene. Obviously, when they get there, Jen, they feel like he is impaired. They put him through some field sobriety tests. He flunks those. They take him to the jail, or they take him to the station rather. And like you said, he blows zeros across the board on the breathalyzer, so no alcohol in his system. That's not really up for debate. But once they asked him to submit to a urine test so they could see if he had any other prescription medications, something like that in his system, he refused. So not only does he get the DUI charge, but he also gets refusing to submit to an official test, as well as property damage for some property that his vehicle damaged as it was again, rolling over on this road. And it's very reminiscent again of what happened in 2017. And then in 2021, he got in that crash in Los Angeles where he was never tested for being under the influence. So a lot of people thought the police really bungled that investigation. And in that case, he almost lost his leg. So I know a lot of people close to him, Jen, say it's time, you've got to get your things together. If you've got an issue, we know you've had a lot of injuries in the past. If you've got an issue with prescription medication, let's get you some help before you hurt yourself or hurt somebody else.
And then before we wrap real quick, this is Masters Week, right?
Yeah, next week, but yeah. And now that's obviously, I can't see how he would play. Does he even go, though, I think is the question.
Yeah, all right. I mentioned that because you are the executive producer of TMZ Sports, so I figured you'd know about it. Michael Babcock,
thanks for the plug,
you.
Jen.
You're welcome. I want to get you paid.
I'll see you soon.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be right back in 2 minutes. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick. That is Artemis II, and that is in what we call in Florida the Space Coast. So basically Cape Canaveral, this is supposed to happen around 6:30 at night on Wednesday. And I can tell you this, talking to different people in and around that area, they're saying the buzz around this launch is as big as it has been in quite some time. So what you're going to have for the first time since 1972 are humans that are going to go to the moon. So it'll be 4 Artemis II astronauts. It is 3 Americans, 1 Canadian, and again, they are going to be the first to blast off, humans blasting off since 1972. I think you've been with us in past weeks where they were doing what they called like a wet, instead of a dry run, they do a wet run. And what that means is they've been practicing the countdown algorithm, practicing the protocol with fuel in that rocket. So that's what they call a wet run. And a lot of it is going to be historical, right? We're going to be seeing people that will go there. We have been told that the United States at some point wants to build a permanent lunar base, and it will up there on the moon, and that's where they will plan future missions to Mars. And if this sounds like space news, JP's here for it. He's one of our directors on this show. But okay, so that's like way far ahead, right? But what it will be is really an achievement of finally getting men and women, adult humans, back to the moon after years and years of delay. Oh, what are they doing for us? And budget problems. They gave us the White House. You know why they gave us the White House? We can go back to that. Because we are expecting a White House press briefing. You know what? The president, though, might be talking about this because it is a big deal for the science community in and around the United States. The president will probably also be talking about the fact that the TSA workers will be getting paid, even though the Congress failed to act on that on Friday. So, you know, as we look at these airports, we have live images of them. Certainly, we've been peeking in Atlanta. I'm not sure that we still have that anymore. We don't have that. All right, so we're going to go back to Texas. About an hour and a half ago, there was a school shooting right there. That is a prep school. It's a high school. It's a private school in the outside of Austin, Texas, so in the Austin suburbs. We know that one person was shot. And again, we don't know if that person is a student, a school employee. We don't know if that person could be a member of law enforcement, and we do not know the condition of that person. We also have been told by the sheriff's department in that county that this was not an active shooter situation and that everything there is under control. We know that the schools in that area, even though you see cars, the schools are in a lockdown situation, in part because one of the things they're doing, they're moving the kids from that high school to the public middle school. That is where the caregivers will be picking up the kids that were inside that high school. We are expecting a press briefing from there at some point to just really share with us exactly what could have happened. So again, the other thing that we're really looking at, oh, what's going on there? Are they going in? Let's go look at this live. So again, this is outside of a school in Austin, Texas. And as you can see, that's in our smaller camera, you see the FBI now is going in to this school. So this school, again, is a private school. It's within what they call an ISD, so an independent school district. It's where all of the resources from that county are shared. Bull Verde is in the Austin, Texas area. And it's interesting that we're seeing the FBI going in and not local authorities. Again, right now, we have not been told much beyond the fact that one person was shot, one person was taken to the hospital, and we were told that it was not an active shooter situation. Typically, when you see the FBI, it is because there was an active shooter there. And as you probably know, that information could get updated. So the more that they learn, the more that they discover about what's happening, maybe that will give us some insight on why the FBI is there. We do know that law enforcement officers are right there on campus. Again, they're saying that they are secure. And we also believe, although the threat has been contained, the students and staff remain in kind of a secure area. So they have not been released yet to the middle school, where as expected, their parents are going to pick them up. We do know that you have to be, listed in their system to be able to pick them up. They're trying to make sure that everyone is safe and everyone gets to be where they need to be. They do also want cars to be clear of that area as they continue to investigate. Maybe they're saying, this one highway where we're seeing cars on the outside there is far enough away where they can stay away, but they certainly do not want parents, caregivers, or anyone else that might be interested in what's happening kind of flooding to that area, flooding to that high school. Again, in that smaller box, that's really where you see a lot of the action that's happening. That's Skyfox, and you can see there are officers that appear to be outside of that school, going into that school. You have to wonder if those people will be in charge of escorting the kids, the staff, the students out of the school at some point. As you can tell, this is a live camera. We're using Skyfox. You guys get to see exactly what's happening just as we see it. It's one of the great things about what we do here from noon to 2 every day. We get to show you exactly what is happening as it's happening. So again, you see 3 vehicles from the sheriff's department there. We watched live as members of the FBI also went into that school building. Because we were told it was not an active shooter, we're kind of curious about why the FBI would be there and what part of the investigation they will manage. There you see it again. I think those are the people that have on the gear that reads FBI on the back. It does appear to be a scene that is contained, and at the same time, we're not getting much information out of there. The sheriff's department has just said that someone was shot. They said that one person has been taken to the hospital. But beyond that, beyond saying it's not an active shooter and it is contained, they're really not giving any of us in any news organization any more information than that. Again, we know that this is a suburb outside of the Austin, Texas area. And just looking at this, and again, as a mom of a kiddo that goes to school, the parking lot looks pretty empty. As you can see by the Skyfox view there, this school is definitely within a residential neighborhood. But you think about high school, and in a neighborhood like that, typically there's a lot of kids that have cars. It is 11 o'clock, so it's not like it's super early, it's not like it's super late, but certainly it's an interesting situation to say the least. We're going to take a quick 2-minute break. We have a lot happening. We're here till 2. We're waiting on the president and so much more. Hope you stick around. Welcome back in, everybody. I'm Jen Frederick, and we have a quad box for you. All right, these are some of the things that are happening live as we're on the air now until 2 o'clock today. So first of all, top left where you see the word live, that is the White House press briefing room. We are expecting Caroline Leavitt, who is the president's press secretary. She's expected at 1 p.m. If you have been with us for the past couple of weeks, you know that rarely do we see anyone at the ascribed time. So again, we're going to start looking for Caroline Leavitt, as the people in that room will, at 1 p.m. And when we do see her, we're going to go there live. The other thing that's happening, your money, that is a live picture from the New York Stock Exchange. It's all green, which is really good news. It follows 4 straight weeks of just really bad news in terms of Wall Street. And that is the longest streak of bad news we've had in quite some time. And then on the lower boxes below the White House press briefing room, Skyfox is over a high school in Texas, in a suburb outside of Texas, outside of Austin rather, where there has been a school shooting. We know one person was shot, and we do know that one person has been taken to the hospital. Beyond that, we don't have too much information. And then we have some information from the Space Coast right there. That is a picture of Artemis II. Artemis II is scheduled to launch on Wednesday right around 6:30 at night. Because there will be 4 human beings on board going to the moon. There's a ton of excitement at the Space Coast. It's the first time a manned spacecraft or a spacecraft with humans will go to the moon since 1972. There was a space shuttle program. It was abandoned. There was money issues, budget issues, obviously tons of delays. The U.S. space program has faced competition from private industry. We know that Elon Musk has a space program. We know that other countries has a space program. So NASA for a long time really has possessed a human launch capable of its own. And they had to basically hitch costly rides for its astronauts with shuttles that are being run by private companies. So it's just a really, really interesting time. We do know that Cape Canaveral, Titusville, Cocoa Beach, and all of those Space Coast cities are very excited, and they were very excited when Artemis was announced in 2017 as part of the government's big space policy directive. And so, during the first Trump administration, we know that industry was revitalized. NASA's private space partners like SpaceX and Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin constructed big buildings, huge facilities, getting thousands of people back to work. The other thing that's happening all morning back here in Philadelphia, there was an incident that happened that many people were talking about. That is the story that Shayna is on. It's not a good one. Good afternoon. What do you have? What's the latest?
Good afternoon. Yeah, certainly not a great story. We're talking about yet another shooting in the city. This is at 10th and Diamond in North Philadelphia, just off of Temple University's campus. And so we had a situation overnight, just about 3 a.m., where shots were fired, essentially. Here. I'll flip the camera around so you can see. This is a space, a business that was essentially adjacent to student housing here along Diamond Street in North Philadelphia. And apparently a shooting broke out here where 3 people were shot. I'm not sure if you can tell, but this window that you see here is blown out completely. You have the glass still on the ground here. From what we can see. And so at this point, we have folks kind of boarding things up right now. But it appears that people were out here last night having a good time, a late night, when someone approached this area and began firing. So at this point, we know that 3 people were seriously injured, one of which is in critical condition at Temple. The other 2 are stable. We're told that there haven't been any arrests just yet. I did speak to a number of Temple students that, walked through this area, and they were able to kind of give me their perspective in terms of what they saw, what they heard, and just the concern for their own safety, as this is, again, adjacent to student housing. A lot of students live here. So that's the latest from what we've been able to gather now. And now we're kind of standing by for more information from Philadelphia police as they kind of just begin their investigation.
All right. Thank you. Yeah, I know in some cases during some years it has been student housing. Not sure what it's being used for now. Yeah. All right. Thank you, Shayna.
Yeah, it seems like there's a top there that's all student housing, and then at the bottom, I'll kind of flip it around. At the bottom, it seems to be a bunch of different businesses at the bottom. So you have a barbershop at the end, a nail shop. So all of these businesses are kind of here, and then students kind of stay up there. So it's mixed use at the bottom, and then student housing or housing here for students at the top.
Awesome. Thank you. We appreciate the help. This is not good news if you are a lacrosse fan in or around Philadelphia. The Philadelphia Wings have said, you know what, they are going to hang up their wings. Basically, they're saying after the season, they've made the decision to cease operations. What's interesting is they have done this before. Back in 2017, they did the same thing, and then they came back. They came back with the same colors, the same arena, everything. They basically say they recognize that the news may come as a disappointment, and we want to express how grateful they are for the dedication of their fans. We talked about this in the newsroom a little bit. You know, the Wings lacrosse team plays an example of box lacrosse. It's inside. It's a very aggressive form. The goals are much smaller than what you might see in some of the other lacrosse formats. So even though there's a ton of lacrosse families in and around this region, box lacrosse in that format never seemed to take off. So we'll miss the Philadelphia Wings and all the fun athletes and people that work for them that we got to know. Quick break, 2 minutes. Again, we're waiting on that press briefing from the White House and so much more. We're with you guys until 2 o'clock today. Welcome back in, everybody. It is almost 1 o'clock. We're going to be with you until 2 o'clock, and this is Philadelphia Live. What the heck are you looking at? I'm about to tell you. We have 4 live cameras all ready for you. Top left-hand side, you see the word live. You see the American flag. That is the White House press briefing room. We are expecting Caroline Leavitt. She is supposed to be there around 1 o'clock. If you have been here with us for these events, you know that rarely does it happen right at 1 o'clock. It's one of the reasons we stay on until 2, so we can capture everything that happens. Also on the top, on the right-hand side, Cherry Hill, New Jersey, Congressman Donald Norcross, he's going to be there with some local leaders, and they are going to give just a ton of money to a community project. It's going to help people in Camden County as well as the city of Camden. A lot of municipal utilities are going to get a lot of money. They're going to help out the county's sewer system. That will improve the water quality there. And the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is also going to help there. Norcross is going to present a check as well, $850,000 to the city of Camden, so they can purchase new garbage bins. So they will join a lot of people in and around this area that have the semi-automatic curbside collection services. They're going to move away from the old drag and dump, where you saw there was little efficiency and a lot of environmental waste. Hopefully it will streamline that city and get them going in the modern era. And then below that, below those seats, you see Artemis II. JP, one of our directors, that's his favorite story of the day. He loves space news. Wednesday around 6:30 p.m. On the Space Coast, which, you know, is Melbourne, Florida, Titusville, Cape Canaveral. For the first time in decades, 4 people will get on a manned spacecraft. And now we're looking at the UN. I know a UN guy when I see it. Next to him, again, in that other box that says Philadelphia Live, that's Skyfox. That camera is outside of Austin, Texas, looking at a high school in a suburb of Austin where we know that at least one person has been shot. There will be a press conference about the spacecraft in a little bit. Because we are in the middle of a massive Middle East conflict, I think we should do this. I think we should go to the UN, listen in while we wait for what's happening in Washington.
course, there's much more that is currently done by the UN with the agencies, given the number of displaced persons in Lebanon, in addition to the many refugees there. So there's a very significant humanitarian operation. And then third, what can we do as today UNIFIL, tomorrow, if anything, a remaining presence of a military nature, military observers, and perhaps several other type of military capacity to support the LAF, the Lebanese authorities, in the implementation of Resolution 1701. Now, all of this, of course, the letter is premised under the assumption that ultimately we will have to resume, there will have to be a process resumed, political one, to implement Resolution 1701. Again, we strongly believe that there's no military solution, that the Lebanese authorities have to be supported in their firm intention as stated by, or as reflected rather by the various decisions that the government made recently to implement Resolution 1701. They need to be supported to that effect, so that, again, we reach a political solution where the security interests of Lebanon, the security interests of Israel as well, will be taken care of and respected.
Okay, Josie.
Thanks very much. I just want to clarify, so one peacekeeper was killed yesterday and one was injured, is that right, in the attack?
Yesterday, right, one Indonesian peacekeepers killed yesterday and one injured. And today, unfortunately, two other Indonesian peacekeepers killed and one at least severely injured. Yes.
So the announcement says that their vehicle was destroyed. What type of vehicle were they in?
We can provide you with more on this one, I would assume, but then again that they were in an armor, probably an APC, armor personal carrier, but I don't have the specifics. We can provide you.
So it was a roadside bomb?
We can't tell. It can be a roadside bomb, can be an ID, it can be a strike. At this stage, we're investigating, but at this stage, I can't.
And have you been in touch with the IDF regarding this attack?
We are in touch with all the parties on a regular basis. The force commander is in touch with the IDF, almost every hour. That's what he told me. He is in touch with the Lebanese armed forces as well. We're in touch with the, of course, we're in touch with troop contributing countries. We are in contact with the Indonesian. Of course, I convey to them our condolences and our solidarity, and we're informing them as well about what is being done for the deceased peacekeepers and the injured. So yes, absolutely. I should say that the liaison with the IDF is constant, which enables UNIFIL to deconflict.
All right, so that's what's happening. The United Nations, they're talking about a number of different things. At the same time, back here at home, the Pennsylvania Department of Education, they are also talking. Remember, this is the group that works directly for the governor. I believe we can listen in there. They're talking about funding different things. Is that person asking a question? Let's listen in.
He and I share a music background. He's an audio engineer and was an instructor of audio production and IT at numerous colleges along the way. And also Samantha Starlipper, Deputy Communications Director for the Pennsylvania Department of Education. Thank you for joining us. Your partnership is crucial in so many ways. And we spoke earlier about the Dual Credit Innovation Grant, which we were so grateful to receive, Dr. Kuhn. With that program, we have greatly increased enrollment from high school students. We are now, through our Bucks County College Access Network, enrolling students from every public high school of Bucks County in dual enrollment courses, as well as students from private schools and homeschooled students. It is this kind of partnership that means that a person's ability to pay isn't a barrier to accessing higher education. And it's not just about credential completion, but it's about believing in oneself that one can succeed in college, that early college experience is crucial. You helped us move from 5 years ago, where 5% of our student body was dual enrollment, to this year where it's over 10%. So we are very grateful. So how about a round of applause for that grant program? Thank you. And now, it is my pleasure to welcome to the stage, to greet us and make her announcement, please welcome Dr. Lynette Kuhn.
Good afternoon. My name is Dr. Lynette Kuhn, and I serve as the Deputy Secretary for Post-Secondary and Higher Education at the Pennsylvania Department of Education. I am honored to be here today to announce the recipient of this year's Parent Pathways Grant Program funding. This year marks the third year of this grant program and brings the funding total to more than $4.8 million to a total of 34 institutions that have received this funding. Many students across Pennsylvania are balancing the responsibilities of parenting and raising children while pursuing a post-secondary education. The Parent Pathways Grant Program gives these students a chance to achieve their educational goals while receiving support from their college or university through tuition assistance, emergency funding, wraparound services, and much, much more. We at PDE are proud to support and administer this grant program and will continue to work with Governor Shapiro and the administration to make higher education in the Commonwealth accessible and affordable to all students. This is Bucks County Community College's first time receiving this funding, and the first time a college or university in Bucks County has been a recipient of this grant. Recipients of this year's Parent Pathways Grant funding are the Community College of Allegheny County, Point Park University, Reading Area Community College, Bucks County Community College, Eastern University, Pennsylvania Institute of Technology, Pennsylvania College of Technology, Northampton Community College, Chestnut Hill College, St. Joseph's University, and Seton Hill University. These colleges and universities will use this funding to support parenting students by expanding or implementing programs, resources, and supports for scholarships that will help cover tuition, housing, childcare, and more, for emergency funding, and to help break down barriers to help parenting students succeed and access their post-secondary credential. Breaking down these barriers is work we are proud to do, and we are honored to work alongside these colleges and universities to help more students complete a post-secondary education. Congratulations to Bucks County Community College and all the institutions that are a recipient of this year's Parent Pathways Grant. We look forward to continuing to collaborate and share in this critical work that you are doing. Thank you.
This kind of grant will change lives for generations. So to give a little bit of perspective on this, someone from our own community who is an expert in this space, please welcome to the podium Dean of Social and Behavioral Sciences, Dr. Samantha Gross.
Good afternoon, everybody. Community colleges have long expanded access to higher education for populations historically underrepresented in post-secondary enrollment. Today, Bucks County Community College continues to broaden access for all interested in higher education, including parenting students. However, access alone is not always enough to ensure completion and student success. As education scholar Vincent Tinto has noted, access without support is not opportunity. Parenting students who stand to benefit significantly from earning post-secondary credentials complete degrees at lower rates than their non-parenting peers, despite higher or comparable academic ability. This persistence gap reflects not academic shortcomings, but structural barriers that require targeted institutional intervention. Parenting students face disproportionate non-academic challenges that directly impact their ability to remain enrolled and complete their credentials. They are more likely to experience basic needs insecurity and face significant barriers related to childcare affordability. On average, parenting students incur approximately $6,000 more in opportunity costs than their non-parenting peers when pursuing secondary education. Without intentional support, these financial pressures can lead to course withdrawal, stop-outs, and delayed workforce entry. These delays are significant not only for parenting students' livelihoods, but for their families and the community. By helping parenting students at Bucks County Community College, we are supporting stronger economic outcomes like higher household incomes and increased homeownership, while we lessen the likelihood of unemployment and strengthen critical workforce pipelines in high-demand fields like education and nursing. Supporting parenting students means strengthening families, communities, and our regional economy. This makes the assistance we will be able to provide through this grant so critical. At Bucks County Community College, we are committed to ensuring that parenting students not only have access, but the support that they need to realize opportunities for themselves and their families. We are grateful to Dr. Kuhn for being with us here today, and to the Pennsylvania Department of Education for recognizing the need to support parenting students by providing Bucks County Community College with the Parent Pathways Grant, as we work together to help remove barriers to completion and strengthen pathways to family-sustaining careers. This support will mean so much to so many students at Bucks County Community College. And now I am pleased to introduce one of our many amazing parenting students, Sam Rodriguez. Sam is a biomedical sciences major and a mother of 3 children. She carries a 3.6 GPA and serves in...
So again, that is the Pennsylvania Department of Education talking about a bunch of things. In the smaller box, we're still waiting for the White House press briefing room to open. It was supposed to be available around 1 o'clock. Typically it happens closer to 1:20. We're going to stay on top of that. Still back home in Pennsylvania, Kelly Rule is in Bridgeport, where apparently there was a car show. Things got out of hand. Am I right? Good afternoon.
You are right. Good afternoon. Yeah, so we're actually in Logan Township in New Jersey at the Bridgeport Speedway here. And yeah, this is a speedway that's been kind of a family-friendly speedway for a long time. People in the community are used to people showing up for races here. But yesterday it sounds like it was supposed to be a car show of some sort where they were working with a promoter that was selling tickets to use this space here. The issue was according to the Speedway, they did not know exactly how many people were coming. And when it was supposed to be from 12 to 5 yesterday, and around 10, 11 o'clock, people started to show up, and the sheer volume and traffic just got out of control. According to the Speedway, there was nothing going on inside the property that was the issue. It was the amount of cars coming down here and just not having the capacity or bandwidth for it. So we're waiting to hear from Logan Township Police. We know that they responded. It sounds like they got assistance from New Jersey State Police as well, waiting to hear back from them. But we spoke with a winery down the street and a neighbor, and they said, people were not, at some point they cut off access to the property again, I think because they realized they weren't going to have the capacity for it. So people were just parked along the side of the road, getting out of the car. As one neighbor said, they had to use the restroom, but there are no restrooms out here. So there was just a lot of people, but they were not, for the most part, from what we've heard, the crowds were not disrespectful. They had very few issues with behavior. It was more just the number of people, and there were concerns about where everybody was going to go. If God forbid there was an emergency, how people would get out. The highway was backed up as well. So just a lack of preparation and planning, and they're hoping that, in the future, there'll be better steps taken.
All right, so Kelly, you mentioned the word family friendly. There's a rumor that this is your last day before you go to expand your family.
Yes, Yes, that is not a rumor. That is true. That is accurate. So next time you see me on your show, I will be a mom of 2, which is crazy to say.
And do we know what you're expecting? What you getting?
No, surprise. Yeah, so I have a 2.5-year-old son, and he is telling me I'm having a girl, and he's been very adamant for months now that there is a baby girl in mom's belly, but yeah, we don't know. We're waiting to find out. It's going to be a surprise. He's kind of convinced me, but I don't know if he's right. He's got a 50-50 shot, so, you know.
Yeah, like we always say, 10 fingers and 10 toes, right? You just want someone healthy and thriving.
I just want a
and all
healthy
that.
baby. Yep.
But you know what's great?
Yep.
You don't even have to come back into work to do our show. Let's say you're bored. Let's say you're bored with 2 under 3. You want something to do.
Bored. Yeah.
All right. Well,
I'll think about it. Yeah.
That's all we want. No, honestly, congratulations in advance. We're happy. It's been so cold, so windy, so yucky. So you deserve a little bit of time before the next one comes. Congratulations in advance.
Thank you so much, Dan. I'll miss you.
Oh, we're going to miss you right back. But then you come back because you're going to be sick of them, I promise.
Yes, and mom's got to work, so I will be back. That's what Jim said today earlier. He's like, she's coming back, and I was like, yeah, no, I'll be back.
Yeah, sure. You got it. Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to do a quick 2-minute break. Again, we are still waiting on this White House press briefing. We'll be back in 2 minutes. Welcome back in, everybody. I have 2 different live cameras for you. So the big box, that's PHL. We call that Philadelphia International Airport. Why are we showing you this? We're just hearing from the Associated Press that the TSA says most of its workers got paid Monday for at least 2 paychecks missed as the ongoing shutdown clogged the airports, made us feel terrible about flying while they were working. A lot of people, I flew one time during the shutdown. I can tell you many people were saying, thanks for coming to work. Thank you for doing this. We know that in some areas like Houston, the call out rate was above 40%. That's why in Houston in particular, the lines were 4 hours long. In Philadelphia, we didn't get too much of that. 4, 5, 6 o'clock in the morning was tough on some mornings, but by and large, we did not see what they had faced there. This is an important week for these TSA workers to be coming to work because a lot of people are flying because of because of the spring break holiday, everyone wants to be safe. Everyone wants these workers to be able to support their families. So again, the TSA does say most of its workers got paid Monday, and when they got paid, they got at least 2 paychecks missed as part of the ongoing shutdown. We do know that shutdown, by the way, it's a partial government shutdown. It was the Department of Homeland Security, which includes ICE and some of these other departments, including TSA. That shutdown has already gone on for 45 days, making it the longest government shutdown because Congress will not be in session. This is day 1 of their 2-week break, so they won't be in session for another 10 days with the weekends attached. It'll probably go up at least to 55, maybe close to 60 days if we include, I don't know how they count that, if they count the weekends or if they count the actual work days. Bottom line, a lot of people are still not being paid. Day 44, longest shutdown in government history. That small box that you're looking at, that is the White House press briefing room. And again, we're always waiting for Caroline Leavitt. She is the president's spokesperson. JP says when you see the words on the screens, that's when you can expect the event to happen. Again, we were told to be ready at 1 o'clock. We always kind of look at this. We make sure that we keep that live camera up so that you guys can see it as well. But JP says when we see the words on the screen, and certainly when we see people standing up, it's a good indication that Caroline Leavitt would not be far behind. They typically do a White House press briefing once a week. We never know what day of the week it is. But with this being like a Passover and Easter spring break holiday week, that's a triple right there. We're not surprised to see this on Monday, as you can predict that likely this will happen. And then the men and the women that work as part of the press corps, as well as the White House, they may have some days off this week. If so, you can imagine that is the reason why we're seeing the White House press briefing on Monday of this week and not midweek. And among the things that I'm sure we're going to hear Caroline Leavitt talk about, certainly these TSA workers getting paid. Certainly, I would assume we're going to talk about what is happening in the Middle East. It will be interesting to hear her take on what happened on Friday when the Senate voted unanimously to end the shutdown, and then the House of Representatives really didn't take it up at all and just left for the break, saying that it's a Republican-led House of Representatives right now, and their spokesperson had basically said they didn't like the deal that was made in the Senate, again, agreeing to open up government, pay everyone absent immigration customs enforcement officers and the team that deports people when ICE is trying to get someone out of this country. So again, the House of Representatives said they didn't like that deal. They didn't have time to negotiate it. So one of the things we're going to do now, we are going to go, as we wait for the White House press briefing room, we do know that there is a press conference happening in New Jersey where people are talking about funding things in the city of Camden, in Camden County, infrastructure, and so much more.
Issues in Camden City are very significant, but there is a plan in place thanks to my colleagues at the Camden County Sewer Municipal Authority, CCMUA, and Scott Schreiber, who's here representing the CCMUA, that there is a plan in place, a $155 million infrastructure investment in this city to reverse what has been over 100 years of the combined sewer. Now, that kind of money is significant. It's not something that Camden County can pay for by itself. We need the help of our friends at the state, and in this case, the federal government. Last year, $2 million was devoted to this issue. This year, a $1 million investment by the federal government to help Camden County, Camden City, and Gloucester City resolve this issue. So, Congressman, we are so appreciative of the money that you have given to us to make this situation resolved and to solve what has been a 100-year-old problem. I do want to recognize, I want to recognize Jen Fleischer, my colleague on the Board of Commissioners, Scott Schreiber, who's the Executive Director of the MUA.
Welcome back in, everybody. You see her. That is Caroline Leavitt. She is the press secretary for the President of the United States. We're going to listen in, but real quick, we do know that Brandon Graham of the Philadelphia Eagles, he says he will have an announcement about his future 11 a.m. tomorrow. So again, the President, Camden, Brandon Graham, we've got it all for you.
Increasing its advantage over the terrorist Iranian regime. More than 11,000 enemy targets have been struck to date, each strike further crippling the regime's offensive and defensive capabilities and creating more leverage for the United States and our allies. Compared to the start of the operation, Iran's ballistic missile and drone attacks are down by roughly 90%. The United States is also decimating the Iranian regime's navy. We have destroyed more than 150 of their naval vessels so far, including 92% of their largest vessels. The Iranian Navy has no vessels operating in major regional waterways and no ability to project naval power, which is why they've been assessed as combat ineffective. Our military continues to obliterate Iran's defense industrial base, with nearly 70% of their missile, drone, and naval production facilities and shipyards damaged or destroyed thus far, significantly reducing their ability to pose future threats in the region. U.S. and Israeli joint forces control the skies and have asserted air dominance over Iran, completing more than 11,000 successful combat flights thus far. The trend remains clear. The United States is conducting more intense, targeted strikes with devastating combat power with each passing day to destroy the threat posed by the Iranian terrorist regime, as President Trump sought out to do a month ago. It's no surprise that we are seeing the remaining elements of the regime become increasingly eager to end the destruction and come to the negotiating table while they still can. Despite all of the public posturing you hear from the regime and false reporting, talks are continuing and going well. What is said publicly is, of course, much different than what's being communicated to us privately. As a result, President Trump issued a 10-day pause to postpone planned strikes on Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure. This remains a truly once-in-a-generation opportunity for the regime to make a good deal with the United States, permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions, and stop acting as the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. If the Iranians reject this golden opportunity, the greatest military in the history of the world continues to stand by to provide President Trump with every option available to ensure this regime continues to pay a grave price. One way or another, Iran will no longer have the credible ability to threaten the United States or our allies, which is, of course, the overall objective and mission the president set out when he launched Operation Epic Fury. Unfortunately, even as President Trump is working hard every single day to protect the United States from foreign enemies, Democrats on Capitol Hill have failed to do the same here at home by keeping the Department of Homeland Security unfunded. Over the past 6 weeks, Democrats in Congress have pushed our air travel system to its breaking point and inflicted massive pain on Americans with their reckless political games. 500 TSA officers quit their jobs. Thousands more were calling out sick at record rates due to the lack of pay. This resulted in security wait times exceeding 3 hours at major airports across the country, creating nightmares for millions of Americans. Overall morale among TSA staff plummeted as well, all of this creating an unacceptable heightened security risk. Because of the Democrats' unwillingness to do their basic job of funding DHS, President Trump determined that these circumstances constituted an emergency, compromising American security. That's why last week he accordingly signed a presidential memorandum directing the Secretary of Homeland Security to work with the Director of the Office of Management and Budget here at the White House to use those funds with a reasonable and logical nexus to TSA operations to provide TSA employees with the compensation and benefits that would have accrued to them but for the Democrat-led DHS shutdown. This bold and necessary action by President Trump will ensure our TSA workers receive their hard-earned paychecks. It should not have come to this point, but President Trump will always do what's right by the American people, and he found a way to do that to get TSA paid. Ensuring that these federal workers who perform critical public safety responsibilities can feed their families, pay their rent, and show up to work is something the president was honored to do. But this moment should be an eye-opening one for the American people. Let's be clear about what is happening. Democrat members of Congress are more than happy to put your safety at risk because they oppose the president's administration and his administration's efforts to enforce our nation's immigration law. Democrats refuse to fund ICE because they want millions and millions of illegal aliens to pour into the country just like they were under the Biden administration. They want murderers and rapists and thugs to remain in your communities rather than be removed by ICE and Border Patrol agents. The Democrats created this mess. They are the reason for long lines at airports and tens of thousands of employees going without pay. Once again, President Trump is cleaning up their mess because he cares more about the American people than destructive, petty, partisan politics. With that, I will take your questions today. Here in our new media seat, we have Wid Lyman. Thank you for being here. And why don't you kick us off?
Thank you. Happy Easter.
Thank you. You as well.
2 questions for you. Thank you. There are some concerns the administration is starting to change its position on deportations, border enforcement, possibly asylum policies. What would you say to Americans that are somewhat concerned that the shift has happened?
Sure. Well, while there has, of course, been a change in leadership at the Department of Homeland Security with former Senator, now Secretary Mullen, joining the president's cabinet, I can assure the American people there has not been a change in policy. It has always been the policy of this president and this administration to deport the worst of the worst illegal alien criminals from our communities. That's something I know Secretary Mullen remains wholeheartedly committed to doing. And it's something that is overwhelmingly popular with the American people. And it's something that is necessary to protect our homeland and to prevent deaths of Americans in our country. Just last week, Sheridan Gorman, a young woman in Chicago, was shot and killed on the street walking with her friends outside of her university by an illegal alien from Venezuela who had no right to be here in the first place. And it's despicable that Democrats are currently defunding the department that's responsible for removing illegal aliens like that. And I would also add it's despicable that the lack of coverage of this young woman's case, of her life, and the way that it was tragically cut short. I saw a survey over the weekend that I'd like to bring to all of your attention. This is the media coverage of the case of Sheridan Gorman. You have ABC News has spent 1 minute and 19 seconds between 2 days when this case was first alerted. You have CBS 2 minutes and 1 second. You have NBC 23 seconds spent on the life of a young, beautiful American woman whose life was taken short by an illegal alien who should have never been here in the first place, when we are in the middle of a battle on Capitol Hill with a major political party, the Democrat Party, who wants to defund the agency that is responsible for protecting Americans. I think her life was worth more than 23 seconds on cable television, and I think the people in this room have a responsibility to report on cases like this because it just exemplifies why the president believes so strongly in deporting illegal aliens from our communities. And thank you for the question. Dasha, go ahead.
Caroline, I have 2 questions, one on Iran and one on DHS funding. On Iran, the president has said that the administration is talking to a new and more reasonable regime. How confident are you that they are legitimate and have enough grip on power? Marco Rubio said earlier that he's not sure and it's not clear whether they will be in power. So are you also talking to other factions? As the president is trying to make a deal, how do you ensure that you're making a deal with the people who can actually implement it?
Well, that's part of the ongoing process that's taking place and the ongoing negotiations. Of course, anything that they say to us privately will be tested, and we will ensure that they are being held accountable to their word. And if they are not, the president has laid out the military consequences that the Iranian regime will see if they don't hold true to the words that we are hearing privately behind the scenes. When the president says more reasonable, again, these folks are appearing more reasonable behind the scenes privately in these conversations than perhaps some of the previous leaders who are now no longer on planet Earth because they lied to the United States and they strung us along in negotiations, and that was unacceptable to the president, which is why many of the previous leaders were killed. So again, this is another historic opportunity for Iran to do the right thing, to rid themselves of their nuclear ambitions and to come to a deal with this president and the administration. Or again, they will see the grave consequences of the United States Armed Forces, which they are continuing to see every day throughout this operation.
On DHS, how long can the administration keep paying TSA without action from Congress? And not to be hyperbolic, but given the airports were really the pain point that was pushing both sides to talk to each other, I mean, do you see a way for DHS to reopen? Is it possible that this keeps going through the midterms?
Well, we certainly hope so. I mean, of course, the president just can't keep signing presidential memorandums and proclamations every time Congress fails to do its job, and every time Democrats are holding our entire country hostage, picking and choosing which programs and agencies they want to fund just because they don't like this administration's policies. That's not how it's supposed to work. They voted 7 times against funding DHS over partisan and political reasons. And so, again, the president has stepped in to do the right thing at this moment in time, but the president is also encouraging Congress to come back to Washington to permanently fix this problem and to fund and reopen the Department of Homeland Security entirely.
Caroline.
Stephen.
Thank you, Caroline. 2 questions, one on TSA, one on Iran. On TSA, for ordinary Americans watching the briefing, how long until everything goes back to normal at airports after the president's action? And then on Iran, on the time frame, President Trump initially said about 4 weeks. Secretary of State Rubio on Friday reportedly said it might be another 2 to 4. Is 2 to 4 the current ballpark that the administration is thinking?
With respect to the timeline, again, the President, Commander-in-Chief, the Pentagon has always stated 4 to 6 weeks estimated timeline for Operation Epic Fury. We're on day 30 today. So again, you do the math on how much longer the Pentagon needs to fully achieve the objectives of Operation Epic Fury, which I will reiterate: destroy the Iranian Navy, destroy their ballistic missiles, dismantle their missile and drone production infrastructure, significantly weaken their proxies throughout the course of this operation, and then, of course, preventing Iran from ever obtaining a nuclear weapon. To your first question, Stephen, about TSA and airports, nothing will be truly normal again until Democrats do the right thing to fund this agency fully. Again, the president has stepped in the meantime to do what's right to end this crisis that we've had at air travel and at airports across the country in the meantime. But again, Congress needs to come back. Democrats need to fund the Department of Homeland Security so we can formally and fully get these great employees paid long into the future. Jonathan.
Thanks a lot, Caroline. 2 questions regarding the financial costs of the war. Back during the Persian Gulf War, 1990, 1991, Arab countries paid for the vast majority of the cost of the war. Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, the UAE. Who's paying for the cost of this war? Will those Arab countries step up to do just that?
Well, I think it's something the president would be quite interested in calling them to do. I won't get ahead of him on that, but certainly it's an idea that I know that he has and something that I think you'll hear more from him on.
And then secondly, the cost of diesel is averaging at $5.38 a gallon right now. What's the message from the Trump administration to truck drivers who are dealing with those high fuel costs right now?
Again, we understand, we hear you, we see you. We are fully tracking this short-term fluctuation in oil and in diesel prices. And that's why the president and the administration have continually announced robust actions to provide stability in the global energy market. As you know, political risk insurance, one of those actions, allowing countries to purchase sanctioned oil just to increase the supply. In the meantime, we've worked to release 400 billion barrels of oil and refined products as well. We issued the 60-day Jones Act waiver. All of this has, with the goal of increasing supply to create stabilization in the market in the meantime. But the overall message, as we've repeatedly stated, is, again, these are short-term actions and short-term price fluctuations for the long-term benefit of ending the threat that Iran poses to the United States of America, our troops, and our allies in the region, and ensuring that this regime can no longer control the world's free flow of energy through the Strait of Hormuz, which is something the administration continues to tackle day by day as well.
Jennifer. Just 2 questions. Which Jennifer?
I'll go to both of them.
Go ahead. So 2 questions. One on China and one on Iran. On China, ahead of the president's trip to Beijing, will there be a working level meeting with Secretary Bessent, Jameson Greer, et cetera, and when will that be?
I do expect cabinet officials to travel to China ahead of time. I don't have a readout on their schedules for you, but this is something we typically do with international travel, as you know. So I'll talk to the Treasury Department and the cabinet myself, and we'll get you that answer. But we do expect them to move ahead of time.
Okay, and thank you. And on Iran, if Iran is kind of cherry picking what tankers get to go through the Strait now and contemplating big tolls on those tankers, is that consistent, or how is that consistent really with the president's message about really wanting the Strait to be fully open Does the administration support a regime or system where Iran is effectively charging tolls on these vessels to access?
That's not something we support, and I would reject that they are cherry picking. In fact, as you know, these tankers that are moving through, the 10 that were previously announced, and now the new 20, the announcement of 20 additional tankers, which we expect to see over the coming days, are a result of the direct and indirect talks that are taking place between the United States and Iran. So you wouldn't have seen those tankers if not for the president's diplomacy and his team engaging on this matter, which we expect that compliance moving forward. And it's, again, something that we're working on very closely. Sure. And behind the tank in the back right there, you put up your hand very excitingly. Go ahead.
Hannah from News Nation.
Thank you.
Thanks for taking my question. I have two for you real quick. There are reports that Republicans are weighing cuts to health care in order to make way for that $200 billion for the Pentagon and Operation Epic Fury. Is that a trade-off that President Trump supports?
I've seen these reports. I haven't spoken to the president about it, nor have I heard this being discussed in any high-level meetings here at the White House. I don't want to weigh in definitively because I just haven't heard that being discussed here in the West Wing.
And then secondly, I know President Trump says we're ahead of schedule in achieving his military objectives in Iran. He laid out that 4 to 6 week timetable for this conflict, and we're now within week 5. So how do you square kind of those two?
Well, 4 to 6 weeks estimated timeline. Again, you just said we're on day 30 of the operation. I just provided you with some of the updates from the Pentagon directly in achieving the objectives, and the military has been enormously successful. I think we should all be very proud of our armed forces for what they have done over the past 30 days. The mission will continue until the objectives are achieved, and that 4 to 6 week timeline does remain right now. I don't have any updates for you on that.
Yeah, like others, one on TSA, one on Iran. On Iran, I know that it's tough to engage in hypotheticals, but I feel like this is one that you could engage in if the president does seek.
Probably not, but
If the president does seek, or the United States seeks a ground war, does he intend to get congressional authorization of that march?
Look, the president has been asked about boots on the ground or alleged ground operations various times. He's obviously declined to rule them out. It's the Pentagon's job to provide maximum optionality to the president. It does not mean he's made a decision, nor would he ever notify the media of such decision as not to tip off our enemy. With respect to abiding by Congress and the rule of law, that's something the administration will, of course, always do. And it's something that we have great respect for Congress. The president does with military operations. In fact, prior to the launch of Operation Epic Fury, as you know, the administration gave a courtesy notice to Congress in the Gang of Eight, and top-level administration officials and cabinet secretaries have gone to Congress multiple times over the past 30 days to provide those courtesy briefings to Congress when requested.
TSA quickly, I've been asked by multiple Trump supporters that have said, given the fact that the president on that Friday gave that memorandum informing DHS to pay TSA workers, I know there's a lot of negotiations involved in a shutdown of this size. Why did the president not sooner issue that payment to TSA workers?
Well, it's because of the Democrats voting 7 times against reopening the Department of Homeland Security that we came to a place of an existential crisis. I mean, you saw the lines at various major airports across the country, American travelers really paying the price for Democrats' partisan games. And so the president worked with his legal team here at the White House and the Office of Management and Budget to find a solution to take care of the emergency that we were seeing in air travel across the country. And it's because of the president that TSA agents are being paid. But again, he's calling on Congress to do the right thing, to come back to Washington and to fund and reopen the Department of Homeland Security fully. Sure.
Hi, Lindsay Ellis from the Wall Street Journal. I'm trying to square the 4 objectives laid out by the administration with the goal of reopening fully the Strait of Hormuz. Would President Trump declare victory and wind down military operations if the 4 objectives are met, but still passage remains quite slow through the strait?
Look, as I've said repeatedly and as the president has laid out, the objectives of Operation Epic Fury are as follows: destroying the Iranian Navy, destroying their ballistic missiles, dismantling their defense industrial infrastructure that produces those weapons that have long threatened the United States and our allies, and then, of course, preventing Iran from ever obtaining a nuclear weapon. The full reopening of the strait is something the administration is working towards, but the core objectives of the operation have been clearly defined for the American people by the Commander-in-Chief.
Garrett.
president posted this morning about, his threat that on leaving Iran, he said we might blowing up and completely obliterating all of their electric generating plants, oil wells, Harg Island, and possibly all desalinization plants. Under international law, striking civilian infrastructure like that is generally prohibited. Why is the president threatening what would amount to potentially a war crime with the U.S. military? And how do you square that with the administration repeatedly saying that the U.S. does not target civilians?
Look, the president has made it quite clear to the Iranian regime at this moment in time, as evidenced by the statement that you just read, that their best move is to make a deal, or else the United States Armed Forces has capabilities beyond their wildest imagination, and the president is not afraid to use them. That's not what I said, Garrett. And you're saying the word potential for a reason, because I'm sure some experts are telling you that in your ear to try to ask me that question. Of course, this administration and the United States Armed Forces will always act within the confines of the law. But with respect to achieving the full objectives of Operation Epic Fury, President Trump is going to move forward unabated, and he expects the Iranian regime to make a deal with the administration.
To that end, which of those objectives would destroying a desalinization plant most help?
Haley, go ahead.
Thanks, Caroline. I want to follow up on Iran. When you're describing that the Iranians you're in contact with are being more reasonable this time around in discussions, what specifically are you hearing that is leading you to that conclusion, and how are you defining what's reasonable versus unreasonable in that regard?
I'm not going to detail the private and sensitive conversations that are taking place between the United States and Iran right now.
But generally speaking?
Generally speaking, the president gave you the answer. What we're hearing from them is more reasonable. They have agreed to some of the points the United States laid out, as the president said last night aboard Air Force One. But again, as for the specifics, as these negotiations are ongoing, we're not going to broadcast them to the world unless the president chooses to do so, which he has the full right to do as the leader of the free world.
On Cuba, the president threatened to tariff any country that would send oil to Cuba, but now the U.S. is letting this Russian tanker to Cuba. Is this a policy change, or is he willing to let more tankers into Cuba now?
This is not a policy change. There has not been a formal change in sanction policy. As the president said last night, we allowed this ship to reach Cuba in order to provide humanitarian needs to the Cuban people. These decisions are being made on a case-by-case basis. And as the administration has said, Cuba's non-functional economy cannot be fixed unless they undergo dramatic political and leadership change. But there has been no formal change with respect to sanction policy.
So you could expect more tankers to go to Cuba?
Again, these decisions are being made on a case-by-case basis right now.
Thanks, Caroline. You addressed this a little bit in the opening, but just to follow up, because Americans are sort of seeing these conflicting messages between the United States and Iran. I know the president insists that negotiations are underway. As you just mentioned, he's also said that Iran has agreed to most of the 15 points. We just heard from Iran again. They're saying no negotiations are taking place. They're calling the proposal excessive, unrealistic. So how do you square that? How do you explain that discrepancy between the two?
I think the American people are smart enough not to take the word of a terrorist regime that has chanted death to America for 47 years at their word. And I hope the journalists in this room are wise enough not to take an Iranian regime that has repeatedly lied about our country, about our values, about everyone in this room, frankly, for nearly 5 decades. So I think the American public are smart enough to understand that.
And just to follow up on the objectives, you laid them out, but I know the president has set a deadline for April 6th in just 1 week. What does the president need to see to not move forward with those strikes by April 6th?
Well, I think he said it in his Truth Social post this morning. He wants to see a deal over the next 10 days. That timeline is waning, several days left, and we'll see. I won't get ahead of it. We'll see what happens in the end of the 10-day period.
Caroline, thank you. One on Iran, one on the shutdown. The president continues to say the U.S. is in conversations with a more reasonable regime, but there are now hundreds of U.S. Special Operations Forces, including Navy SEALs and Army Rangers in the Middle East, as well as thousands of other troops already deployed. So is he trying to end or intensify the conflict?
The president is focused on achieving the objectives of Operation Epic Fury. With respect to forces that are on the ground in the Middle East, it's the job of the Pentagon to create maximum optionality for the commander-in-chief. It does not mean the president has made any additional decisions. Again, he remains focused on ensuring that the Pentagon continues to achieve the objectives of the operation that was launched 30 days ago, and we're well on our way to doing that.
So if an American sitting at home hearing him say, I want to talk, but I keep seeing them send troops to that region. What are they to make of what's going on?
There's two tracks here. The president has always said that diplomacy is his #1 option and priority. Again, he tried earnestly, in good faith, to engage in diplomacy with the Iranian regime prior to this operation being launched in the first place. He wanted to strike a deal, and he sent his top negotiators to do so. They spent extensive amount of time and effort trying to strike a deal, and unfortunately, the previous regime, again, many of those leaders no longer with us here on Earth because they faced the consequences of the United States military. So if there's ever a chance for a deal, again, the president is open to listening, but it does not deter him from focusing on the military objectives that he set out 30 days ago and that our military is continuing to achieve day by day.
On the shutdown, he signed the national emergency order last Thursday, making sure TSA officers will be paid. There's still other civilian DHS employees, however, who are not being paid.
Yes.
Will he sign something similar to ensure they also get paid?
Look, the president will always look into ways that we can make sure that the American people are being taken care of and doing what's right by the American people. But again, it's ridiculous that the president even has to go to the length of working with the legal team and the Office of Management and Budget to identify these funds. It is the job of Congress to fund these agencies. And Democrats in Congress have voted 7 times against funding the Department of Homeland Security. Congress should come back and they should get it done. The president, again, made the decision to prevent this existential crisis we were seeing at our nation's airports across the country that was only going to get worse, and that's why he wants Congress to do his job.
If you don't mind, since you mentioned...
I'll go to you as well.
Okay, you're welcome. Since you mentioned Easter and prayers, I wanted to ask you about something the Pope said yesterday. So Pope Leo said yesterday, and I quote him, "God does not listen to the prayer of those who wage war." Can you comment on that?
I think our nation was a nation founded 250 years ago almost on Judeo-Christian values, and we've seen presidents, we've seen the leaders of the Department of War, and we've seen our troops go to prayer during the most turbulent times in our nation's history. And I don't think there's anything wrong with our military leaders or with the president calling on the American people to pray for our service members and those who are serving our country overseas. In fact, I think it's a very noble thing to do. And if you talk to many service members, they will tell you they appreciate the prayers and support from the Commander-in-Chief and from his cabinet.
Caroline, thank you. President Trump told the New York Post that a response is coming shortly to Tehran attacking Israel's largest oil refinery. Is there a timeline on that? Is that tied to the success or not of the negotiations?
I don't have any updates for you on the president's comments.
Does that consider the IRGC in control of Iran?
Well, look, as Secretary Rubio said today, the leadership is very fragmented. We have really neutered their intercommunication systems, and that's part of this process of diplomacy to continue figuring out exactly who's in charge. I know they appointed a new Ayatollah, haven't seen or heard much from him. And so that's part of this diplomatic process that's underway right now. I'll take a few more. Solon.
Thank you. You listed the described humanitarian reasons for allowing that oil tanker to reach Cuba. Just to clarify, why was the administration okay with Russia sending that oil to Cuba and not other nations?
Look, again, this was a decision. It'll continue to be made on a case-by-case basis for humanitarian reasons or otherwise, but there's been no firm change in our sanctions policy.
President Sheinbaum of Mexico also said that Mexico is exploring different ways to restart some of those shipments to Cuba. Is the administration okay with that at this time?
Again, there's been no change in our sanction policy. We still reserve the right to seize vessels if it's legally applicable that are headed towards Cuba and that violate the United States sanction policy. But of course, the president and the administration also reserve the right to waive those seizures on a case-by-case basis.
And to clarify, just any more Russian oil tankers going to be allowed to reach Cuba at this time? I know you say case-by-case, but for the case of Russia, is it pretty much green light right now?
No, that's not what I said. It's a case-by-case basis. Sure, Jeff, go ahead.
Switching topics, the president has always attended CPAC. He did not this year. Why did he not attend, and does he believe CPAC is becoming less relevant?
No, I don't think he believes that at all. In fact, he loves CPAC and has a very good relationship with the great people who run it, Mercedes and Matt Schlapp. It was just simply for scheduling purposes this year, with it being in Texas. It was best for the president's schedule and what he has on his plate right now not to go.
Carolina,
Michael.
Thank you, Caroline. If and when
Michael.
a deal is finalized with Iran, how does the U.S. provide protection to who it's negotiating with to ensure that they can carry out the president's peace plan?
Again, that's something I'm sure our national security team is discussing. I don't have anything for you on that today.
The ballroom. Can you tell us more about this massive military complex underneath the president's new ballroom?
I cannot tell you more about that, actually, as a matter of fact. However, the military is making some upgrades to their facilities here at the White House, and I'm not privy to provide any more details on that at this time. Caroline, go ahead. Reagan.
Thanks, Caroline. Question on the Middle East and then a question on Antifa. Netanyahu said Sunday that Cardinal Pizzaballa will be able to hold services for Palm Sunday in the Church of Holy Sepulchre after he was initially blocked by Israeli police. Did anyone from the administration or the president call over to Israeli officials to assist the cardinal in this?
Yes, I did speak with Secretary Rubio this morning, and we did express our concerns with Israel with respect to these holy sites being shut down. We want worshipers to be able to access these holy sites. Of course, safety is a top priority, but we understand Israel is working on those security measures to reopen the sites throughout Holy Week, and that's something that we're appreciative of.
Antifa.
Sure.
In Texas, 9 people have been convicted by a federal jury on domestic terrorist charges connected to Antifa. The White House has previously indicated that you guys are investigating Antifa, who's funding them, who's leading them. Can you provide an update on how that investigation is going, and do you think we're going to see more charges against people connected to Antifa?
Well, I do know that there was an entire task force that was set up, an interagency task force to focus on the threat of Antifa, which, as you know, Reagan, this president declared a domestic terrorist organization, rightfully, and we will continue to look into it. I don't have any updates on those specific investigations, but I'd be happy to have my team get those over to you today, as this continues to be of the utmost importance to the president and his domestic policy agenda.
Caroline, JJ. On one question on landmines, there's been some reporting that American-made landmines have been spotted on the ground in Iran. Did President Trump sign off on using U.S.-made landmines in Iran?
I don't have any comment on that report today.
Caroline, whether they're being used at all?
I don't have any comment on that.
Karen.
Two on DHS. You said that the president is encouraging Congress to come back to D.C. You also said yourself. How has he done that? Has he told leadership that they should cancel recess and come back?
He said it repeatedly. I think you recall. He said that he'll host a big Easter dinner here at the White House if Congress will come back and fight the Democrats on this issue, which we should do, because, again, the Democrat Party is in the wrong here. They have voted 7 times against funding the Department of Homeland Security, which is completely egregious with everything we have going on in the world. And these brave men and women who serve DHS deserve to get their paychecks. The president wants to see that happen, and he wants Congress to come back to get it done.
On the paychecks, Caroline.
All right, so there you see it, the White House press briefing wrapping up. Caroline Leavitt taking on a number of things this afternoon, certainly talking about what's happening with the government shutdown, as well as what's happening with the TSA agents. Earlier in this broadcast, about an hour and a half ago, we learned about a school shooting that happened in and around the Austin area. That is the school right there. It is a prep school. It's a high school. We have learned that this is coming from the sheriff's department in that area near Bolverde, Texas, that a 15-year-old male is accused of shooting a teacher and then ending his life, basically turning the gun on himself. We are told that that teacher was taken to a San Antonio area hospital. Interesting, because we do believe this happened closer to Austin. As you may know, Austin and San Antonio, less than an hour apart. Does look to be a little bit rural, and we know that in San Antonio, the hospital system is pretty serious. It's kind of like a Philadelphia